If you would all rise and join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That's you.
Okay, next item on the agenda, roll call, I guess? No? Let the record reflect that we have a quorum. Next item on our agenda is election. This is the time that we elect the chair and vice chair for 2019. So at this time, I will take nominations.
Nominate Bob Taylor for chair.
Second.
And there's a motion and a second. Any other nominations? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Bob, I will give you the gavel shortly. We will now take nomination for vice chair.
Mr. Chair, I nominate Julie Pierce from Transpac as vice chair.
Second.
So there's a motion and a second for Julie Pierce. Julie accepts the nomination. Are there any other nominations? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Julie is now, let's congratulate both our chair and vice chair. Okay. At this time, I think I hand the gavel over to our chair. And I want to thank our vice chair for being there for me and assuring that when I wasn't here that nothing stopped, kept going. It's been a pleasure working with you. And to the commission, thank you for the opportunity to have served this last year as the first county chair to CCTA. It made it historical for me as well as hysterical.
At times.
But we do want to thank you, and the staff here is just outstanding. And so, Randy, I want to thank you and the staff for providing me with all the material I've ever needed and being able to serve the organization. So with that, I turn it to my good friend, Mayor Bob Taylor.
Thank you very much. I was just telling Glover, we've been around forever, and this is I'm only with him on Tri-Delta, and this is the first time I've been his vice chair on any committee and everything. And Glover kind of amazes you at times because his extent of knowledge and what he's gone through, where he's been, and he's traveled many, 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 many trails. And following his career, you go, I think the county's been very blessed to really have Federal Glover. He will, when he leaves, he will have been kind of a trailblazer, particularly transportation, because he really, when he first got on the boards, he has really made a difference. And he's really promoted this agency and MTC, and he's just done a great job. And so, it's an honor for me to have been his chair, and you really have to realize, since this organization came to attrition, he's the first supervisor that's ever been a chair of this organization. So, let's see, I'm supposed to give a little speech about you. I've already built you up, so your head is, hopefully you're in a convertible so you can get in the car tonight there. But you helped get us the BART extension to Antioch. Now, anything I say here was written, so if you didn't do it, we're going to fact check you. So, I guess you did the launch of the first shared autonomous vehicle on public roads in California, and he brought the trophy. Where's the trophy?
In the kitchen.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. Oh, you're going to get the trophy? And then I'll bring that up last. You really did something for myself and East County. The furthest point was the Balfour interchange. You helped share that. And you, a pilot program to fund Lyft rides for seniors, the launch of a new website. These are things you've done. Groundbreakings for both the Interstate 680 carpool and express lanes project and the 684 interchange. And then I'm supposed to say that, oh, here it comes. This is the most prestigious thing that we really got honored, and you need to explain to them what this is about. So you're back on.
So I had the honor of accepting this award on behalf of CCTA. It has to do with our diversity programs and the fact that when you look at CCTA, you're looking at an organization that represents a very diverse population. And in doing that, we have put together teams that have provided work for this agency that is made up of women-owned businesses, minority business, and across the board just really made sure that the jobs that we have been able to get out there has gone to strong bidders, but at the same time, in fairness, the best qualified to do the jobs that we have awarded down through the years. And like I say, it's made up of a very diverse group, be it minority-owned business, women-run business. And so I was very proud to be able to accept this on behalf of this agency because I know what we've been able to do down through the years. And so not only did I stand there with pleasure of that, but just a total recognition of what I'm so proud of, and that is this agency and its ability to really work with our diverse communities down through the years. So this, Randy wanted to make sure I brought it tonight. I was trying to keep it on my shelf and hope that he forget about it, but it's here tonight, and that was Compto's award that we received.
Well done. Let's see. Oh, yes, we always give the outgoing chair something to remember us by, right? Not that you would ever forget us anyway. But and he's not going anywhere. Well, he's going to be roaming around. So here we go. Oh, this one's got your picture on it.
Oh, that's scary.
Whoa. That's a new deal. You got to stand up. What do you think, Glover?
Very nice. Very nice.
This
Is
is
that 19 cities?
all 19 cities. There it is. You got to stand up.
And the county.
But this is nice. This is nicer than what I got. Here we go.
Wait a year.
Here we go.
And this is actually a picture of the BART train.
Yes, the BART train. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was the opening.
Let's
Thank you all.
Man, nicer frame and everything.
You gotta wait a year.
20 pence on there.
Oh,
You gotta work for it.
Got the county pen, too.
all right.
Very nice.
Let's see. Now I'm a little liberated here. Here we go. Let's see. Committee assignments. So we do need an action on that. And so what am I saying here? That we are going to, all committees,
From my understanding, everyone wants to stay on their current committees.
Is there anybody that did want to make a change on committees? No.
No, you hold on.
Okay, then do I need a motion to,
I'd move we accept the recommendation that we keep our committee assignments for the upcoming year.
I have a first, second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Approval of minutes? Oh,
Schedules, meeting schedule.
Yes.
meeting schedule first. Thank you, Noel. We need to approve, wait. You got all this, Terry Ann?
Yes.
We have a first, we have a second. Call for the vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, now we approve approval of minutes.
Move approval.
First, second. Any discussion? Call for the vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. Now we can actually move into consent calendar. I have a first, I have a second.
You need to get back to your
My script.
agenda.
Well, you guys have me on, you got me going, man. Okay, any discussion? Call for the vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. Let's go to regular agenda items. Is that better, Noel? Okay, here we go. 4A11, approval of lump sum payment to California Public Employees Retirement System, CalPERS, to pay off the authority's unfunded accrual liability. And Brian, you're the man.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Brian Kelleher. I'm the authority's Chief Financial Officer. Before you tonight is the approval of the lump sum payment to CalPERS to pay off our unfunded liability. With recent changes in 2016, the CalPERS Board of Administration made some changes to reduce the discount rate from 7.5% to 7%. The discount rate is one of the most important features of our pension liability. The discount rate is the long-term interest rate used to fund future pension benefits. The discount rate is also known as the assumed rate of return because it's what CalPERS expects its investments to earn during the fiscal year. By reducing the discount rate from 7.5% to 7%, CalPERS projects it's going to strengthen the long-term sustainability of the fund while also improving the likelihood of CalPERS investment earnings earning their rate of return at 7%. What does this affect on CCTA? Well, there's two components. Our unfunded liability has increased because our expected rate of return is being reduced from 7.5% to 7%. So what the employer does is the employer's rate of 8.3% back in 2016-17 is going to increase to about 10.3% in 2020-2021. Based on averages of most cities and other agencies throughout California, it's a very low rate. It's a very nice rate to have for the authority. The funding history. There's a chart down below that shows all the way back to 2011. The accrued liability was about $8.1 million. We had about $6.2 million, and our funded ratio was about 76%. Again, in May of 2015, the authority made a choice to put in $2.2 million to pay off our unfunded liability. And you can see in the rows the difference between 2014 and 2015. Our unfunded liability went from about 82% to 97%, and we have about $11.4 million. Over time, and based on the changes on the discount rates, we're now at about $1.2 million with the latest study. So CCTA holds assets. We have cash committed for future projects, but we have the investments held by CalPERS. CalPERS has over $350 billion, and with that, they have the discount rate it used to be 7.5%. It's now being reduced. It's now reduced to 7%. And here you have a chart that shows the annual earnings by year. Back in 2009, you can see that it went down about 24%. If you take out that 24% and you look at the rate of return for the last 9 years, they've had a rate of return of close to, I think it's 9.94%. Over the last 30 years for the CalPERS, they've had a rate of return is about 8.4%. That is much better than what the authority can do. In the bottom box, I have a 10-year historical look on a 1 million. So if you take the 10-year LAIF average that a lot of cities and us use to have our cash to build our projects and keep all of our programs going during the year, we earn about 0.7%. So if you take that $1 million, it's about $70,000. If you take bulk of our investments are in U.S. Treasuries, they earn about 2.5% over the 10-year period. That's about $250. And if you had those funds invested in CalPERS, you can see that we would have returned about 6.5%, $655,000. I added a little chart here on your right. It shows where the funding for all of our retirees and all the retirees in California goes. For every dollar we pay the CalPERS retiree, 60% of it is coming from interest income. So it's very important that we have our interest income, and then the CalPERS employers paying about 28 cents, 28%, and the CalPERS members about 13% throughout their life during their appointments. So our unfunded liability, due to the discount rate, is amortized over about a 30-year period. We're into it about 2 years now, and just like your mortgages on your homes, you can see that you pay interest over the years. And if we were to just continue to pay $50,000 to $100,000 a year over the next 23 years, I think it is, it ends up being about $1.6 million. So we can have a $1.6 million savings now, and we can also put the money into the hands of CalPERS, who earns a lot more money, and then their 30-year average is about 8.5%, where ours is going to stay about 2.5%, depending on what happens in the economy if interest rates go up. Our unfunded payment is going to be about $1.2 million. Again, our savings could be about $1.5 million, but that doesn't take into account the future interest earnings that we could be earning on this money. The proposed source of funds is going to be Measure C. We have about $4 million of reserve funds in Measure C to pay for ongoing programs associated with the authority, and this would be a good use of those funds. That concludes my presentation, and staff seeks approval of Resolution 1905 to pay off our unfunded liability. Any questions?
Karen?
Could you go back to the previous slide, Brian, where it says PEPRA employees amount? Is that just the amount we've been collecting? Because PEPRA shouldn't have any unfunded liability.
Due to the discount rate, their rate of return when it started, and I think it's slowly falling behind, and we have just 4 PEPRA employees right now over the last 4 years. So it's a very small amount. It makes sense to just pay them all off at the moment.
Well, no, I agree. I'm just curious why we have, my understanding is PEPRA is 50 employer, 50 employee, and there was no unfunded liability starting January of 2013. Anybody hired after that throughout the state who's in PERS, there's no unfunded liability. What am I not getting?
Well, the discount rate, I'm going to try and answer. The discount rate takes into effect the life of an employee.
Right.
And the rate of return that they're expecting.
I get all that, but there wasn't supposed to be anything on PEPRA. That's what I'm not understanding. You're saying there is a
there is. It's very minimal because they do pay the bulk of their amount, and there is a limited amount that they can retire at. It's been reduced. They do have maximum set, so it's always going to stay at a very minimal rate, whereas with the classic employees, it has potential to go a little higher.
Well, and Deborah would understand this too. We both sat on Cicera. Our understanding is you pay unfunded liability on anybody who's classic because there was the discount rate, but anybody after, they were supposed to be paying the full share all along. Maybe Deborah?
Yeah, do you want me to answer that?
Oh, sure, because,
Yeah. So, so you can, so the unfunded liability is created by several different assumptions that are not met. So we set assumptions. The rate of return, investment rate of return, is the biggest one that usually creates the bulk
problem.
of the unfunded liability. But there are other smaller ones, and even the PEPRA employees, we can not, even though there is a true 50-50 cost share, we can still not meet the assumed rate of return and create an unfunded liability.
and I appreciate that.
that
It's
gets
just interesting because the
amortized.
public has been told that
Yeah,
there
that's not
is
true.
no unfunded liability
Yeah.
on PEPRA, so.
And the unfunded liability is always paid 100% by the employer.
Absolutely.
And the employees do not
Pay
share
any
in
of
that. So.
So it's another reason for not you, but for PERS to reduce their rate of return.
Yeah, so while we're on that, can I just ask another question? Because one of the things I noticed is you're showing an amortization schedule over 30 years for the unfunded liability. At what point does, I know CalPERS voted to start to reduce that, because at 30 years you're getting negative amortization in the early years. Do you know at what point that new amortization schedule starts getting phased in? Or was that up there? They did, but it's phased in.
It's phased in, and I do think it starts in the next fiscal year.
Okay.
And maybe it is going to come out in August of this year when they do the 2018, because there's always 1 year in arrear.
Okay.
But it's not here yet.
Yeah, because that's going to create, in not only are, as you nicely explained, not only are we phasing in a reduction in the assumed rate of return, but then we're going to layer on top of that a reduction in the number of years of amortization of that unfunded liability, and that's creating for all employers, as we know, a huge increase in the payments.
Okay, any other comments, questions, other Newell? Go ahead.
Well, we got to see this, and we really want to thank Brian for all the work he did. We saw this at APC. This is almost a no-brainer, but we are in a luxury position compared to agencies that have been around with a lot of history, right? Our history is much younger. But we have two things we always have to remember, and I mentioned it at APC. One, we have a horizon that's fixed. This agency will end at a date specific. This has to be fully funded, and that's our responsibility. But we also have Brian, who is always looking at this. We make an instant 27% return by doing this. And as he pointed out, the rate of returns, this is the smart thing. We are in a position to be able to do this. And because this is daylighted, unlike what it was before GASB regulations, where a lot of cities didn't even know that they had liabilities, I commend staff, and Brian has always looked at this since I've been here, that I think this is the right thing for us to do. It's good confidence for our staff to know that we're paying attention. And to the public, we're performing exactly the way we should be. And I just want to say that I think this is a lot of pride to be able to sit on an agency like this that is forward-thinking. So with that, I would move this item.
I do have one more question. Brian, does the agency pay towards the unfunded liability in its budget every year, and then this is just over on top? Or is this just the catch-up that we do when we look at it? Am I stating my question? For the county, I know we're in a different, but we make a payment every year to keep up, and then we pay over and above that to catch up from before. So does the agency do that?
There's two pieces to it. As we pay the payroll to the employee, we calculate in a percentage, and we pay that amount. And here on this slide here is the amortization schedule. So on top of that, the unfunded liability that we need to pay off. So if you just look at the first slide, during this year, we already made a contribution because we're required to make a payment to get caught up on our unfunded
Okay, that
liability.
answers my
And that's
question.
the 52 piece.
Thank you.
I would second Newell's motion.
Okay, we have a second. Any more discussion? Yes, ma'am.
So I also just want to commend the agency and all of you for supporting this kind of a forward thinking and paying off the actual liability as it comes due. I really wish that I could get other agencies that I know to do the same. Thank you.
And can we mention for the public that the reason it's through 2017, and those are the last numbers, we don't have 2018 yet, so,
It's always 2 years behind.
yeah.
Well, first of all, I want to tell you, you sparked interest in my city, and we are, in fact, we're getting ready to vote on it. We're going to pay X amount of years ahead ourselves. And being that you came from Brentwood, thank you for saving us. That, you should have given us a heads up when you were in Brentwood. But anyway, that being said, no, a very good report, and I obviously it's going to save the agency a ton of dough. So with all of that being said, I have a first, have a second, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? How could anybody oppose that, right? Planning Committee, as a planning committee did not meet in February, the following item is being referred directly to the authority.
You missed 4.1.
Board workshop.
You're thinking how I was,
Yeah.
jumping ahead and going back.
Well, I wasn't, but that sounds good. You want to do that? Is that acceptable with the board?
Sure.
Okay, so we're going to go to 4.1.
No.
4B versus 4.1. Got it. All right, you're up.
Thank you, Chair Taylor. Matt Kelly here with Authority staff, here to present the work plan for the 2019 Congestion Management Program, or the CMP. It's a state legislatively required update that we're mandated to do every 2 years. And just for the new members in the room, I'll give a little bit of background on the CMP and how we treat it here. We treat it as kind of a technical update because when the CMP legislation was developed in 1991, we had a recently developed growth management program from Measure C. The state used our growth management program as the model for the congestion management program legislation. So for that reason, we were kind of already doing a CMP through our GMP. And so for that reason, we defer to a lot of the requirements of the growth management program when preparing our CMP updates every 2 years. So the CMP requires that we establish a network of routes around the county that includes all freeways and principal arterials, and we must monitor them every 2 years for their level of service standards. We must develop performance elements to evaluate current and future development and how that impacts the system. We must develop a 7-year capital improvement program that includes projects to support that multimodal system for movement of people and goods. And we must also have a program that analyzes the impacts of land use decisions on the regional transportation system. Our work plan for this year's CMP is, as I mentioned, a technical update. We plan to focus on updating the capital improvement program. So in the next couple of months, we will be going out through the RTPCs and asking our project sponsors around the county to update the cost, schedule, and scope of their projects. And we will be coordinating that with the Regional Transportation Plan, or the RTP, call for projects. So we won't be hitting project sponsors twice in a short amount of time. We'll go out to the RTPCs and ask them to update their projects all at once. We'll separate out the RTP projects from the CMP capital improvement program. We will also update our performance measures. We document the performance measures used in our action plans, our countywide transportation plan, our bike and ped plan, among others. We also have to demonstrate consistency with the regional transportation plan. We also have to document that our model is consistent with MTC's model used in the preparation of the Plan Bay Area 2040. And one thing we will do, since the CMP does require level of service monitoring, and level of service is the standard. As many of you know, level of service under Senate Bill 743 has been removed from CEQA as a finding of significance for transportation impacts. So the state hasn't quite caught up with itself in that it's changed the law for CEQA but hasn't changed the law for the CMP. So we will document that and kind of look at what options the CMP may have for moving forward. But we are still developing a work plan for implementing SB 743 and the change from level of service to vehicle miles traveled, or VMT, here in the county. We're working through our planning directors group on that effort, and we'll be bringing a work plan to you on that in the coming months. So, and the other major component is the actual monitoring. So every 2 years we go out and monitor 65 intersections around the county, plus all the freeway routes, and we assign it a level of service score, A through F. We do that every 2 years. We use that opportunity to also do bike and pedestrian counts at all intersections, so that we have kind of we're able to keep track of the performance and how we're doing, not only traffic-wise, but bike and pedestrian-wise around the county. So our schedule is to monitor the network over the next couple of months. We will, as I said, do a call for projects and update the CIP over the next few months. And in July, we will release a draft CMP. We'll come back to you with a final in December, and at that same time, MTC adopts the CMPs for the 7 CMAs around the Bay Area. So that's my report. I can take any questions.
Questions? Comments?
Second.
I have a first. I have a second. Is any more discussion? Call for the vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Man, you got through good.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, now we will go back to 4.1. Board workshop summary and next steps. And Mr. Tim Hale.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Tim Hale, Deputy Executive Director for Projects. First, just want to congratulate Commissioner Taylor for your appointment to Chair, and also Commissioner Pierce to Vice Chair, and looking forward to working with both of you and the rest of the Commission on another successful year. And I think all of you are aware the Authority held a board workshop on January 31st, 2019 to really discuss the future of transportation mobility in Contra Costa County. And really the Authority's success has been driven by, leveraging other people's funds, as well as making sure we deliver what's in the expenditure plan and keep true to our promises made, promises kept. And we have an accelerated delivery program, and based on that accelerated delivery program, we've been able to deliver almost 2/3 of the expenditure plan in Measure J. And because of this aggressive capital strategy that we have, most of the funds in Measure J have either been expended or committed. At the workshop, the Authority discussed issues, challenges, future scenarios facing the Authority, such as lack of housing in the Bay Area, growth management, the rise of congestion, and increasing need for efficient mobility options. The Authority Board discussed scenarios that may affect how various issues and challenges are addressed in the future, and each scenario identified factors such as the outlook of the economy, changes in regulations, climate change, greenhouse gas emissions, voter attitudes, external factors such as reauthorization of a federal transportation bill, and then staff also presented a number of potential transportation game changers, including autonomous vehicles, Vision Zero, mobility as a service, share mobility, mode shift, congestion pricing, and also the silver tsunami. So the future of transportation is changing, and the Authority continues to lead the way and we need to continue to look for ways to find for innovative transportation mobility options. Authority staff presented also ongoing efforts of commitments and needs for the future, and also to address transportation demand management, the game changers, rising congestion, went over a portfolio of future needs of projects and plannings and programs. And over the last 2 decades, local funds have really been a major component of how we fund projects and fund transportation. And to continue to implement these projects and programs in Contra Costa County to improve congestion, provide additional, and also improve our existing mobility options, addressing future funding needs, a new funding source is really needed. So the authority could consider a development of a transportation expenditure plan to identify and outline the future improvements and their associated costs to address these needs in the future. Once the transportation expenditure plan is developed, the authority board can better evaluate the options of how to fund that transportation expenditure plan and the future of Contra Costa County. So based on the workshop discussions, staff is seeking direction from the authority to begin exploring development of a new transportation expenditure plan, and the first steps would be to conduct public opinion research, propose guidelines, develop a work plan, schedule and cost estimate of this transportation expenditure plan, and then bring it back at a future authority meeting for consideration. Agreement number 435 with Stantec Incorporated, as amended, includes a total budget of $323,000 for on-call specialty services. Approximately $164,248 remains, and that's for continued support of authority initiatives on a task order basis. And so upon authority board approval, staff will issue a task order for $105,000 to support this initial effort. And so with that, I'll turn it back over to the chair for discussion.
I think we'll probably have a lot of discussion. Yes, sir.
Can I make one clarification? Tim meant to say that the project piece, the 42.5% of the measure, has been almost fully expended. He didn't mean that all of the funds are fully expended. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir, for making that correction. Here we go. Julie?
Yes, thank you for the succinct report. It was a very lively day. We had a lot of really robust discussion. I think we all recognize the need that we have for additional funding, despite the fact that SB1 funds are now secure, and hopefully RM3 funds will be once they clear the legal challenges. That's still not going to be enough for the wish list that we see today. And I think it's really important that we look at where we are today, where we need to go, what is future technology going to bring us, what are some of those challenges, and how do we meet them and look at them in different ways than we've done traditionally. And I think one of the things that, in addition to potentially polling the public, I think maybe the first step really is some focus groups with different parts of the Bay Area and different groups. You referred to things like the Silver Tsunami, which is a big deal for many of us here around this table. We are part of that. And I think it would be really helpful for us to hear directly from some of the people in that Silver Tsunami to find out what they think they need. Some of you are much younger than some of the rest of us. But nonetheless, I do think that going out to the public and seeing what they think they need versus what they may not have ever thought of and what their responses are would be something that could give us some valuable information, and get them thinking as well about what the future might be. And some of them have no idea what some of these solutions are that we're talking about. And I think it's really important that we hear from them. We may, from when we talk to the general public, may even get some ideas of things we haven't thought of, which of course would be extremely valuable, or at least a prioritization of what they think is the most important. So I'm all in favor of doing a little bit more research to see what is our next step. Even if we find a way to make everything work with the existing sources of funding, I do think that this research will put us in better stead to make sure that as we get new funds going forward, we put them to the best possible use for our county.
I agree with what Julie said. I think there's some basic things that we need to do. One, acknowledge what legislation's in place that allows us to do this, the time period for that. Which cities, and I think there might be 2 that are in the county that might be maxed on, at this point in time, maybe maxed on sales tax ad. So how does that come into a play where some agencies wouldn't be able to contribute anything, and how do we work that out? I think we should always avoid, we don't have wish lists, we have solutions to problems. And I think we, last time, and maybe because there were some people involved and some little bit of a hangover from how we approached things in the past, of very traditional ways of looking at transportation. We need fresh set of eyes, a unbiased survey when we get to that point. I don't think we're ready for a survey, because I think we have to be able to find out not just what we know as transportation planners and as a transportation agency. What is the number one issue people have? And identifying that, and then what are the potential solutions? Because I think if you want to ask people something, you need to ask it in a context where we understand getting to work, spending 3 hours a day on transportation. What are the alternatives for that? We know we can't widen the roadways in most of our county. We can't do that. So what are the real solutions? So I think listing the problems in a very honest way with a series of innovative solutions, and then using that with focus groups, see what people, do they understand how those things are connected? Do they understand non-traditional solutions where it doesn't mean building more roads? Because I think when we talk to our own constituencies, when are you going to widen the road? Actually, we did it and there's no land left. They don't want to hear that, and they can't really think the way we might be able to and envision another solution, which might be smart city, smart roads, connected vehicles, and all of that. So I want to make sure we're being honest about what we're asking for, and we need the list. If we're going to get $1 billion, which is what we're supposed to get from RM3, we need to list all of that. And with our problem solution list, what are the dollars that are needed to make those solutions, and say the value proposition of a new tax measure will be this. And to sell that, and we can't have we got new people from here, we can't have a BART hangover or a BART bias. Personally, I think we got buried in that last time. And we need to say, what is it that's best for our citizenry, our citizens, and what are those solutions for that? And that will sell itself. And I think we have the best agency that's lined up with some of the brightest people here for innovative solutions. But I think we have to work hard to let people know how those really work. And just putting them on a ballot saying, give us more money, people are still going to think we're going to widen the roads, and we can't. So I think the focus groups with a series of problems and solutions, and making sure we're identifying the right problems. So I'd like to move forward cautiously, but I don't think we ought to be doing the survey yet. I think we ought to be doing the focus groups to understand and what rises and what do we think works. And I think we have to use our expertise to say, well, here's what we hear, and here's what the solutions are. But I'd be worried about doing a survey.
To expand a little bit on what Newell was talking about, I think we talked a little bit of this at our meeting in January, was we have a public that's getting this close to tax fatigue. There's SB1 out there just providing transportation, RM3. People are going to say, why do you need another measure? Why do we need additional dollars? And so as we go out there and we create these questions and we create these focus groups, we should have to detail, this is the amount of money we're getting from SB1 that we can spend in these types of projects. These are the monies coming from RM3. This is where the gap is, and this is the only way we can fill that gap to do the projects that you want done. the only available way is to provide an additional funding source. I think we have to be able to go to the public and explain to them why they need to do this, because even though there's all this money they just voted for, it's still not enough. And to get what we need to be really, really explicit about why they need to support whatever it is we decide we're going that way. And I agree. First thing we should be doing is focus groups, finding out what the public wants before we go out surveying. And I think meeting with not only people in Contra Costa, but maybe even expand it even just to the west side of the bay, because we are so integrated with Alameda to the south. That we have people going over Vasco into Livermore. We have people going on 680, 580, and out they go. We need to sort of get a good idea of what it is regionally, what will support the best for everybody.
I'd like to say something, and then I saw your light. But on the focus groups too, it's not only the silver tsunami. There's a few people out there that are having kids and buying homes and the idea is, though, we definitely need to find out what, let's say, other than the silver tsunami people, the other persons that are making a living, working hard, commuting every day, commuting back to their homes, and there's an awful lot of them. So the focus group should also be a lot of those people. But we need to explain to them, because I'll tell you this right now, what I learned in the last elections, I think more people are voting. More people are watching. You say, well, the younger people don't care. Yeah, they do. They care. I think when I talk to people in a coffee shop, what did they say Congress was? A bunch of white-haired old men. Well, this younger generation is looking. We all need to be Monica's age. That'd be fabulous. But the idea is we're not. But
I don't want to be that old.
But the idea is, I really think on the focus groups, we need to really get in the thick of those weeds. And then I guess I'm going to ask you this: do you know if there would be a mega measure in this?
What do you call a mega measure?
I think what we've learned is the region, 9 Bay Area counties, has been talking about for the last couple of years, but I think the group concluded just in the last couple of weeks that this is the Bay Area Council and other groups, that 2020 was not going to be the time they were going to go. So they'd be looking at 2 years from then. So
that would be working towards our advantage.
Right.
As I see it. If they're not going to come out, so we really need to reinforce what we're doing, and I'm sorry. Mr.
No, I think it's interesting. My statement is more incorporating everything you guys have just been saying. I think the focus group is there. One of the main things you need out of the focus group is to get what Newell was saying. What are the primary issues people? And I think the questions that are answered or that are brought at the focus group will kind of coalesce around what is the primary. The other thing that, I'm not going to get any laughs for that one. The world, according to Dave, I would not miss a single opportunity to be giving people at these focus groups information about who in the heck we are. Because I guarantee you, there are people who still go, what is CCTA? Isn't that the bus that goes around County Connection until we got rid of it? Who we are, what we've done, and I think the best way to handle it, and I'm going to try one of them myself, I've been thinking about this, is stories from the elected officials in the community. You just heard Kevin describe something for Oakley, what they need. I know Newell can describe what we've been talking about, this is what we've done, this is where the financing is, this is how much we've saved. And because we can't get the additional lanes, we have the autonomous vehicle in it, and we left connected vehicle out. That is getting more time on television from 8 or 10 different automakers than anything else. So to me, whenever you have this focus group, you don't even do the focus group until you have something that says, here's this guy that went to the Golden Beaver Award, and his name is not Iwaski. I'm still mad at that guy, Randy. The difference is this time we go in prepared, knowing where we want to go with the focus group, with the survey when it all comes in. And then we're hit the ground running and we're ready for 2020.
Can I just add to that? Dave is absolutely right, and we talked about this in our workshop, about getting even more visible with what we do, making sure that the public knows day in and day out the kinds of projects that we are bringing to them and what we are doing for them to facilitate their commute, whether it's bus service, whether it's rideshare options, whether it's casual carpool options, all those kinds of things that we do in addition to the projects. We need to be out there, visible, making sure that people understand that that's our brand and who we are right away. Well, we should have been doing it all along, but we need to do even more. And I know that Lindsay has been working on it, and she's got that in mind already, so go for it.
Amy.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to kind of pick up on the points that how important it is to get voter views and taxpayer views about what their priorities are. I think focus groups are great. I guess my only concern is the scope of how many people we can reach. And that's one of the advantages of polling, is that we are able to have a much broader look at what attitudes are today. I think if we're not going to be, if the sense of the board is to hold off on polling, a couple of things. I think that whoever is doing this project would benefit from a real thoughtful analysis of the past, the polls we did 2 years ago, the polls that Bart did, the polls we did for RM3, all the ways of gathering information, and then also an analysis of the turnout and what happened in this last election, Measure X. It's always a challenge when you go based on a set of assumptions, and then, we saw such different voter patterns at this last the election we went out to the public. So I think that's the other thing. The other thing I think that's important is to do a robust outreach to the cities, and particularly the city managers and the people who are involved in putting together a plan, with the recognition that we do have this window, as Mayor Taylor indicated, with the fact that there won't be a regional measure until 2022, which we don't even know is going to happen. I mean, that's all up in the air. But that there's this tiny window that we have, and the difficulty that we don't want to do is to go out and build, voter fatigue, or saying, oh my gosh, we really want to be able to win in this next election. And I do think our voters are experiencing the worst congestion, the longest commutes. Our roads have, potholes in, every block. So there's a huge need. And so I think it's just, targeting and figuring out exactly what that sweet spot is in terms of voter support to be able to reach that 2/3 threshold.
No.
I was just going to add two things, just a little bit on Amy and then back to Julie. The polling was out of date by the time we got to our event. It was really old. A couple of major events happened, which I'm not going to mention, that really hurt us in that. I think we all agree to do the polling, but this time is push the polling out till we build a foundation of testing ideas and solutions. We do have to be cautious, what Julie was saying, because this is a measure that we can't self-promote. We have to find information, that it's important to tell people what we have done and why. Not there to sell them on something, say these were the solutions to problems that we did in the past. And it's okay to say how successful in their performance. But the caution is we cannot be selling and be criticized for that. And we got a little bit of that last time. But it also, in order to get to this next level of solutions, people have to understand that this worked in the past, and we're done with that. There are no more options in that. And that's a hard, challenging conversation. We're all excited here. That's why we all want to be on this agency. But the average person has no concept of how that's going to cut their commute, because they're used to a road, and I can't drive fast enough. And when you have to say, well, you're going to drive more effectively, and you'll get there quicker, but that doesn't mean just driving fast. So that's why I think in our focus groups, we're going to test the new solutions against the new problems. And that's an educational process. How do people react to it? Do they even understand it? Because for us to be able to explain it, we get it, but that average person isn't going to get it in the language we're used to saying it. So that's the only caution.
One word, Tim, I'd like for you to use, and because I knew this is going to be the word of the day for me, frustrated. People that are in their cars, people that every morning go to work, and they say, dang, I just voted for we just gave them a lot of money. Then the RM vote. So we're frustrated. How much money does it take to get the apple from the tree? And so I think frustrated is a very good word, because I think it's going to fit a magnitude of persons. And that frustration is, we got to get them to understand that frustration. And the other issue is, I totally agree with Newell, because I've already heard it. We just got through building a highway in my city. So, Mayor, are we going to widen it? Are you kidding? We just opened it. Well, yeah, but see, they're used to this way. Well, we can't widen it no more because your house is going to have to go. That's what I'm saying. No, because your neighbor lives right there, so we'll have to move out a third of Brentwood's population to widen it. Oh, well, that makes sense. But the idea is that this has to be an entirely different mode than what we went through the last time. There should be a whole plethora of questions, and we need to answer them. And we need to answer them in terms that my son understands, and not necessarily what I understand. I'll quit.
Bob,
I'm off. Yes, ma'am.
Just to tag on, because I agree, we need polling, but not until we know what the conversation needs to be. Because until we hear from the focus groups how we need to explain what this is, and we won't get that until we sit down and talk across a table face to face with folks and find out what it is they don't understand and what they do understand, and how we need to verbalize this in a poll so they even get what we're talking about. Because I've had, during the last campaign, I know my husband got targeted because he was on that profile that everybody was calling, and he got off of 2 different polls and said, I don't even know what they were talking about. They were using terms that I didn't even understand. And he said, I gave him answers, but I don't know what I was answering. And I thought to myself, well, if half of our people don't understand what's being asked in the poll, then it's worth nothing. And maybe even so badly misleading that we make the wrong choices. So I think the focus groups are there with the intent of getting us ready for a poll. And they're there to find out what the conversation needs to be. Because we're all inside baseball here. We all understand the acronyms, we understand the language, even when it's full words. A lot of people out there in the public don't understand what we're talking about. They don't know an autonomous vehicle from a connected vehicle, from a Tesla self-driving car or anything else. They don't get it. And they've been watching it all go, but they don't believe any of it. So we've got a lot of educating and learning to do. And that's the whole reason to have focus groups first, is so we know how to ask the questions in the poll.
Tom, I knew you were coming.
You know, I don't want to relitigate our board workshop, but to me, the most frustrating thing is that transportation in this day and age, or let's go broader and say mobility in this day and age, is extremely complicated. And it's often counterintuitive. And I think that, you know, one of the problems with doing polling and doing doing focus groups is you're going to collect some information, but, you know, really what you need is some kind of giant educational campaign. I mean, so many people are focused on the most simple thing. Somebody commutes, you know, they drive to wherever they go. So you say, well, we need to expand or augment the BART system. And they think, what do I care about BART? I drive. You know, they don't get the connection. And I'm running into it with the Richmond-Sanderfeld Bridge. You know, people, you know, it's like, put that third lane westbound in there, solve our problems. What they don't realize is that it's just going to move their problem from one end of the bridge to the other. And almost every transportation challenge, you know, when you get into the weeds in it, it's just not that simple. I mean, to me, that's just very frustrating because, you know, you're trying to solve a problem at the same time you're trying to convince the voters out there that if you ask them what they want, I'm not sure you're going to get great information. I think you might be better off to try to figure out what's going to help them the most and then try to sell it to them.
Focus groups can do that.
Janet?
Yeah, one thing that I haven't heard mentioned tonight, unless I just missed it, is when, because I know in my area we're starting to work pretty hard on the primary election, which is very early this year. So I think it would be good to just talk about that for a minute. When are we looking at doing it? Because that actually would inform what was just said about we need to do this or that, or, you know, we need, within what amount of time is a really important aspect to the whole thing.
I think what I've kind of heard the direction of, we were thinking of 2020.
But there's
November 2020.
Okay.
Do you know more about time?
We also discussed the primary.
And we did discuss the primary.
which is really early in California this year.
Well, it's next year.
I guess the whole point is let's figure out what we're going to,
Get your
what we
button
need
ready.
to do and whether we even have a list we can put together.
And
I guess,
No, go ahead.
yes.
No, go ahead. I don't want to
No,
interrupt.
you're
You know, I think what might be helpful is tonight the board will be voting on consultant and to have them say, okay, here's the situation. What do you recommend in terms of sequencing? The thing about how we gather the information from the voters, from the, all the stakeholders. Second of all, to look at the date. What is going to be when are we going to be most likely? We were saying to go to a March primary, you got to, what is it, Teresa? December. So that's, yeah. So it's the time is pretty tight. So I mean that that to me I think maybe it makes sense is to have them work really quickly, come back to the board with, okay, this is the plan for making these decisions, because they're obviously we want to get the most up to date information. We want to work with the groups that are going to need to come together to deliver this. Ultimately, to be able to fund the projects that are the priorities.
Okay, Mr. Tim Hale.
Well, just to
Did you take some notes?
I took lots of notes. I guess just to reinforce that, so the action before you is seeking direction to just begin public opinion research, which would include focus groups, polling, Could be electronic town hall surveys, so forth, as well as develop a work plan and kind of an action plan to kind of move forward. And then we would kind of, after we complete the public opinion research and have this work plan, we'd bring it back to the board in a future meeting for further discussion and action to bring on potentially a consultant to develop a TEP. And so that's kind of where, so we're kind of taking this initial step, and then a much bigger step, much bigger step will be taken later this in spring.
Okay, with that being said of what you said, we're also going to have some drop dead dates because, it's easy to sit up here and say we need to do this or that, but I'm sure there's some time restraints, and so we have to make sure we're within that window.
So the work plan would include a schedule and milestones from now until November if we decide to go in 2020.
So,
I would move.
hold on, Mr. Hudson.
No, I think he's moving something, but I'll second it. I just wanted to, there's one other thing that I think you heard, but we haven't stated, and that is that immediately we have to be prepared at these, what do we call them, study halls or whatever, just focus groups, to start explaining who we are and what we do. I mean, that was what I heard from 3 or 4 people, that we need to have, consider you're running for a campaign right now, and a sentence from Newell, a sentence from Julie or me or whoever, whatever it takes to really focus on who we are, for anyone that walks in that room to take something with them that explains what we are. I can't even tell you what our mission statement is. I've been hanging around here for a couple of years.
Yeah, I think the other thing that we need to remember is that the last time we put together an expenditure plan, it took a lot of work and a lot of meeting time, and we wound up having extra meetings, more frequent meetings, just to focus on the expenditure plan aspect of that. And I think to some extent we need to start thinking now and backing up the dates. If you got to be on the ballot by December 6th for a March election, then you got to go through a couple of public hearings, which puts you back into October or even before that to have it together. And if you're going to have some time to explain it to people, you better be ready by, maybe August at the very, very latest, if not a whole lot sooner than that. And so that doesn't give us but maybe 5 or 6 meetings between now and then. There's no way we can get that done unless we schedule extra sessions of this board to meet together. And that's going to be really necessary, and we're going to start that really soon. So we need to be thinking very carefully about whether we can actually accomplish this.
Following Julie's comments, I also wanted to specify, and this is what I heard, and Julie and I and a few others, Kevin, I think we met a lot. But the idea was, we said it that during that period of time, and if memory serves me correct, that we really wanted to include the whole board.
Yes,
did I? So do you want to, somebody want to clarify what I think I remember?
No, that's absolutely
So
it's a meeting of the whole.
yeah, so it wasn't going to be 4 or 5 people, whatever it may be. This needs to be brought out. And so we need, if we have to put it on the agenda every meeting, because we got to go through this. I'm for that.
Mr. Chair.
Bob, last time we held separate meetings
Right.
for that from the full board meeting and separated the agendas completely.
So
And I think that's necessary.
In order to move this forward, everybody, we've talked this to death. I think we know what we want to do. I want to follow what Commissioner Wirth has said. It's up to the consultants to come back with a time frame, including everything here. I call the question.
Wow.
And just to clarify, the motion I started to say was, everything was here, including Julie and what Tim said, and so we are clear.
So did you make the motion?
No, I made the second. He seconded. She called the question.
I called the question.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Karen. All right. We're moving. Tim, did you get all that? Thank you. Correspondence communications. Let's see, we're pretty much probably in your packet. Associated committee reports, anything? All right. Chair's comments and reports. If everybody could look, Karen, I'm trying to rush this meeting for you. Here we go.
I have a question.
Okay, let me finish and then you get your question here. If you would look at this book, our wonderful director I was fortunate enough to go down to LA with him. And if you look at that room on the front page here, about 2,700 people in that room. It's the largest room I've ever seen. And everyone was in a tuxedo. Well, except there, I think it was about 300 ladies, and they weren't in a tux, but the other 2,400 were all in tuxedos. And I just, yes, I have a tux. It's old, but I have a tux. What color?
That's what I'm doing.
Okay. So, Mala, I'm reporting out that I attended this. Whew. Group is tough. So the question you had?
What's Beaver Dilly?
Oh. I'm going to turn that over to the director.
Please include what Beaver Dilly is.
Director, would you give your report?
Thank you. So the Beavers is an organization that was started in 1955 by heavy civil contractors on the West Coast. They were the Beavers because they built dams, the waterwork projects. On the East Coast, they were called the Moles, and they were building tunnels for the subway. And each year they have 2 events, and they raise a lot of money for scholarships for colleges and trying to further the trades to make sure we have workers in the future to build our infrastructure. So they do a very good job. And the Beaver Dilly is their banquet that they host with it's a combination of not only contractors but bonding agents and surety insurance folks. They all get together and talk about the future, about what does the funding look like? Are the projects coming in? And then they have the awards banquet in January. So in August, the Beaver Dilly is held in Napa, and in January it's held in Los Angeles. This is like the 64th. And so a group of contractors and consultants nominated myself, and they told me you never get it on the first try, and so no problem. And then for whatever reason, I got the award, but I think more important, and I accepted it on behalf of myself and all of us here, because we have, I say this, and Mayor Taylor really saw it, they really like the work that we do. And it's a combination of holding firm when we have to, when we have issues, protests. It's paying our contractors within 5 working days or less. It's partnering, and it's our electronic, kind of our e-construction program. And I think what they did is they want others to model what we're trying to do here, and bundling contracts. I know that the city of Orinda and the town of Moraga have started bundling their contracts. They're getting better prices. There's less bureaucracy. There's more focus on putting the right product down at the right place at the right time than there is all about who's the boss and things like that. So I accepted on behalf of us, but it was a pretty big deal. I mean, I think it was 2,700 people in tuxedos. Our keynote speaker at our Redefining Mobility Summit is the first woman private astronaut. She was the keynote speaker at the Beaver Award dinner that night. So it was very good. So thank you for all the support. I mean, you should share in this as much as me, that's for sure.
And if you look on page 17, please look at Mr. Schwarzenegger, and would you please look at your director? I think you've gotten more handsome as you've gotten older.
Thank you.
But,
thank you.
There he is in his youthfulness. You have any other things to report, Director?
Doing a lot of podcasts. We're trying to get the word out of things that we're doing. So Lindsay's doing a great job of getting us out and making sure we're in the right locations to talk about all this things that we're accomplishing here at the authority. We broke ground on the 684 interchange phase 3. I wanted to give a shout out to, once again, to the county staff We have an issue where the cranes are up, driving pile, the foundation, there's steel sleeves that are driven in to support the bridge ultimately, and the widened portions of the bridge. And when that crane goes up, it's in the pathway of the flight pattern of the planes. And so we've agreed we're going to lower those cranes at night or in the morning, but that takes 2 hours to lower a crane. It takes 2 hours to bring the crane back up again. And so these issues have been brought forward by the county, Keith Freitas, who runs the county airports, but he's just a fantastic guy. He's a public servant that really kind of works with you rather than I think he has the same philosophy that we do, and so it's really refreshing. But that's going underway. The 680 HOV lane, express lane, there's been really no issues. It's progressing very nicely. So thank you for approving the executive committee for the change orders that we can't bring here. I got great news with the Pittsburgh High School. They're applying for a grant. What they want to do is they want to mold their auto shop program into the future. So all this talk, so some people say we don't get the word out about self-driving cars, connected cars, but for whatever reason, Pittsburgh High School has heard about what we're doing because we've been out to talk to the high school teachers, and they've actually shadowed Jack Hall several times, I think 5 or to 10. How many teachers have shadowed you now? 5? And the word gets around, and so what they want to do is model their auto shop to how do you deal with the connected vehicle, the new computers. So the new wrench is a computer for your cars, and so they're trying to figure out how they teach these kids in the right schools. And they gave a presentation to the Bay Area Caucus. There were 5 counties represented, talked about the future. One of the questions was, how is Caltrans in District 4? And they gave me the mic first because nobody else had worked for Caltrans. And I said, well, we have a new district director, and the decision-making seems to be getting faster. It seems to be fairer, and so stay tuned. One of the suggestions was break it up because the Bay Area is changing, where you have highly urbanized areas and then you have very rural areas. And so the decision-making expertise is a little bit different depending on the situation. So it was a good opportunity to brief our Bay Area Caucus. And with that, I end my Executive Director's report. Oh, my last one. The National Association of Regional Councils. I thought I was invited by the NARC, they call themselves NARC, so the NARC staff, but it turns out one of our commissioners is a commissioner on NARC, and so I found out why I was invited to talk about data, and it was because of Commissioner Pierce. Well-attended, very high-level people. They're developing the next set of regulatory and policies that they want to focus in on from a regional council perspective. That's all I have.
Mr. Chair, can I follow up on the executive director? He mentioned his podcast, but if you're not friends on Facebook with East County Today, you don't know about it. But it has now been put on iTunes. So if you go to iTunes, you can.
Mr. Mitchoff did one.
Well, I did one after.
You're on it too.
I am, but you all know through Facebook, and Randy's really good about letting us know when the agency is highlighted. And I know he talked about the agency, but we need to let everyone know and our listening audience that there is a podcast about that Randy gave, and that I'm putting a plug in for East County Today because they're now, you can go to podcasts and go to iTunes and you can download a number of very interesting people in the county, but I think Randy is the highlight there.
Deborah's been on too. You have been on. All right.
Thank you.
And to go on our directors, my final comments would be that this is my second time of being chair of CCTA. And the first night, 9 years ago, was your first meeting. And so we're very happy you're still here. And you.
Yeah, and you too.
I'm happy I'm still here.
Okay.
It was very wide open. But anyway, Randy, welcome to the next generation. We appreciate you, and it's amazing. 9 years went by that fast. Okay. Yeah, you don't want to hear that anymore. All right. The calendars are attached, and let's adjourn to March 20th, 2019 at 6 o'clock.
Thank you.